Battle of teutoburg. Mdicke teutoburg.
Augustus Caesar ruled an empire that stretched all the way from the deserts of North Africa to the northern forests of Germany. At this frontier in 9 AD, the Roman general Varus led his 17th, 18th, and 19th legions against the greatest threat the empire had ever faced. Varus was governor-general of the northern territories.
Legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, under the command of Quintilius Varus, had just completed a successful military campaign against rebellious tribesmen in Germany. Varus was accompanied by Arminius, born a prince of the Germanic Cherusci tribe. He was made a hostage of Rome as a child. He would later serve with distinction in the Roman army, and was later granted full citizenship, as well as
the world. It had brought 2 million slaves like Spartacus to Italy, almost 1 in 3 of the population. They came from conquered nations to feed the Roman war machine and support the lavish lifestyle of Roman citizens. In the heart of present-day Rome, Mark Corby was shown evidence of just how much the Romans depended on slaves in the time of Spartacus.
Well, come along through here then, Mark. Behind this gate is one of the most extraordinary things in Rome, a wonderful survival, house of the 1st century BC.
Right, yes. Now this is contemporary with Spartacus, is it not?
It's not far off, about 70s BC, maybe a bit later. And it's supposed to be the house of a great Roman aristocrat, Aemilius Scaurus. And he's got one of the best positions in Rome. Do you see through the window out there? And this would be the grand entrance.
Aemilius Scaurus was a wealthy merchant and builder of Rome's first amphitheatre.
Yes, absolutely at the top.
We would like to keep yourself to myself, but I've got your back if you ever need help. Wrong. So the gamers just go out with extra life. Will teach me more army training in the ancient times. But look at Rome now. Some people have disobeyed their own king. Trying to go with their own way. Trying to survive out there in their own way. Is that a picture test gladiator fighter? Gladiator fighter. Gladiator. Journey. Where are the guards? Did you say you would keep them here? And so, Gladiator, would you be willing to sell the straw? That's true, darling. Don't do that. Grazie. More strong, physically strong, not even mentally. Go back to your master, so I can teach you more of your fighting skills. next time. Stable, these are the lights.
Pompeii, until it was buried by the Mount Vesuvius volcanic eruption in 79 AD. In the 18th century, archaeologists excavated some of the most perfectly preserved gladiatorial artifacts we have today. This archaeological gold mine gave a first-hand glimpse at pristine examples of helmets that featured intricate depictions of famous Roman battles. These helmets have rarely been seen outside of their display at the Museum of National Archaeology in Naples, Italy. It is thought that this elaborate armor was another reason many were drawn to the sands of the arena. Also found were gladiator shields, shin guards, armbands, and various weapons used in the heat of battle almost 2,000 years ago.
The symbol of the Senate, all the power of Rome.
It was also in this region that in 73 BC, history's most famous gladiator, Spartacus, led a revolt of slaves and peasants that would change forever the way Roman authorities handled gladiators.
Spartacus's rebellion is triggered by the fact that he absolutely rebels against being turned into a spectacle. He doesn't mind risking his life, but he won't be a spectacle, and that must have been a problem above all for these prisoners of war.
Holed up in the crater of Mount Vesuvius, Spartacus defeated 9 Roman commanders before he and his clan were slaughtered after 2 years of fighting. From then on, gladiator training camps were guarded 24 hours a day, and groups of men who spoke a similar language were separated.
Knowing how to fight and knowing how to fight deadly. Getting ready for a deadly blow that kills by just one single strike on your strong swords and spears. These are hard workers. The fans loved it for entertainment, but it was deadly back then. That's a different sport. That was a different sport, ladies and gentlemen. You might not know what today what it was. Imagine today it happened, and you'll be surprised. But it was back then. This was a back then sport, a vintage sport. It was all about murdering and killing.
As long as the
in a
gladiator
fight.
is brave, you wouldn't normally kill him. And this was regarded as a natural reaction.
It was brutal, it was
Courage,
nasty,
you feel some sort of sympathy
it was
with the
vicious.
person, you applaud them, and therefore you give them their life back again.
Once you won the fight, you have to kill them.
The Roman Empire's obsession with
That
gladiators
would be a
permeated all
barbaric
levels of
way
society.
to go.
Even the emperor had a favorite. In Pompeii, archaeologists uncovered a fan's graffiti of 2 pairs of battling gladiators.
Gotta know how to
See their
survive
names up
in
above
any
them. There's
fight.
Severus, there's Albanus
The Roman
fighting away.
Colosseum.
You can
There's
actually
always gonna be
distinguish
a
the different types
Colosseum
of armor
where
they've got.
it's all
Another
about
example
fighting.
of the pervasive influence of
death,
gladiators on
fight to
everyday
the
lives
death.
can be seen in these common household terracotta
It's similar
oil
as
lamps,
Kung Fu.
which are decorated with
When Kung
illustrations of
Fu was
gladiators and their
the
accessories.
most brutalist
Finish
martial
your mid-fade without pausing.
It's kind of like Kung Fu, which Kung Fu was the most brutalist martial art ever, man. Also Salah.
Contrary to popular belief, the most successful gladiators were rarely killed. They were too expensive. Too much money had been invested in their training and promotion. The pinnacle of a gladiator's career was if he was awarded the coveted wooden sword, often presented by the emperor himself. With this trophy, the gladiator would be given his freedom.
They had a lot of strong weapons. Swords, they just look so strong.
Another way to freedom would be to buy it.
Imagine if you're a kid trying to hold those swords,
they
it
were
would be
allowed to keep a
heavy.
percentage of their winnings. Many free
Heavy,
gladiators
my
returned
friend.
to the arena because they had become accustomed
And if you touch
to
the
fame
blade,
and
it will
fortune.
be strong on your hand.
Like sporting superstars today, very few reach the upper echelon. For most gladiators, every match was a fight for their lives. One can only imagine what went through their minds as they walked this tunnel to what may have been their last appearance.
That's nice. It will not be nice on your hand. It will be brutal and nasty. So those swords are really strong. One hit.
What you see in the Colosseum is a symbol in many ways of the values of Roman life. As in all societies, the way that people go about their entertainments is perhaps the best way to begin to look at them and begin to understand what's in the back of their mind.
It seems to me that what the Romans regarded as the absolute pinnacle of their civilization is something that we recognize as being thoroughly repugnant and inhumane. And
lions, tigers,
I think it's very important for us to look hard at why the Romans thought what they were doing was
not easy.
acceptable
It's not an easy
and in fact
fight.
something to be proud
Gotta
of.
survive a non-easy
At the sight
fight.
of blood, he drank a deep draught of it, in all its monstrous horror, and could not
It's
turn
hard
away.
to
Instead, he lost his reason at the sight of it, and took great gulps of madness. He had no
away from
idea
the
what
fight,
he was
and
doing,
it's hard to
but
win
he was
the fight.
enchanted by the evil spectacle,
That's how life
and became
works.
drunk on the blood-stained pleasure.
As a real human being.
By the 1st century AD, the games had become firmly embedded in the Roman culture. Across the empire, thousands of amphitheaters had been erected for local events.
It's very dangerous to think about the Colosseum as though it were the exclusive focus
is that
of
next to Egypt?
Amphitheater interest, because every little city of any pretension throughout the empire had some kind of space where they could put on these spectacles.
Egypt is part of Africa, so...
Other than the Colosseum in Rome, one of the largest arenas constructed for the games is in Pompeii. It is the oldest surviving amphitheater in the world.
It's all about, man.
This inscription records the building of this amphitheatre in 80 BC, and it's the earliest we have. At the time, they hadn't yet invented the word amphitheatre, and they call it a spectacle, spectacula. And the inscription says, Quinctius Valgus and Marcus Porcius, the two top magistrates, built it for the colony as a spectacle, and they dedicated it to their fellow colonists in perpetuity.
As was the case with the funeral games, there were personal and political motives for local leaders to sponsor spectacles.
And of course the payoff for them was that it became part of their legacy to their town. Particularly in a pre-Christian culture where there's no guarantee of an afterlife, it's terribly important to do something now for which you can make certain that you get remembered.
Evidence of this can still be found on the ancient grave sites in Pompeii.
In the Street of Tombs outside Pompeii, you can still see the link that existed between gladiatorial games and funerals. On them, gladiatorial games that were fought during their funerals.
Beating hard and round.
Being part of Rome is the lifestyle.
Bring them death.
The only way he's gonna get out of it will be a terrible decision.
Emperors kept the population of
Terrible
Rome
decision
happy by
is
putting
to
on
lose
these
the
games.
fight.
It is a way of keeping you away from the more
It's not an
important
option.
But on the other
Lose
hand,
the fight,
it becomes
it's
part
death.
of its own political system.
That's how it
To give you an
works
idea of
in
the
Rome.
enduring popularity of the games and the demand for their existence, these spectacles flourished
You
in the
gotta
empire for
survive.
almost 700 years, from 264 BC to 400 AD. A lucky
Against these
spectator
guys,
attending the
if you
events
wanna
could expect
fight
beast hunts in the
hard
morning
and
with
train
exotic
hard.
animals from around the world, public executions
If
at
you know
noon,
how to
and the
train
highly
hard, then
anticipated
you will fight
gladiatorial
easy.
battles in the
Then you won't
afternoon.
have a problem
You don't just have the games.
fighting these guys.
sorts of ceremonies
easy,
attached.
and try to
You have a great
take
procession
them out
all
easily.
gladiators dress up in their finest rig. You have a band.
They don't know what they're doing.
Music playing, processing down the streets, arriving in the amphitheater.
That's the process about Rome.
Go around the arena several
Process
times.
about
Parade,
Rome.
they would have a warm-up session, and then after that, they would file in front of the emperor sitting in his box, and then they would declare how they wish to fight, either to the first wound or to the death.
It's essential to have as much variety as possible in the games. You don't just want gladiators. You also have acrobats, tightrope walkers. You then cross over between different types. You see if you can get elephants to do tightrope walking.
And in 63 AD, a new attraction was added to the games.
Than I thought.
There were female gladiators. They were
The
regarded
battle would be harder than I
They're
thought.
sufficiently rare that you would advertise them up front as something spectacular that you were going to have in the show. Part of the interest, of course, would be that they would fight with at least one breast bare.
Getting ready for the
obviously
kill.
would go partially to see very attractive women in very scanty clothes fighting with each other.
The Romans wouldn't have wanted to see a woman fighting a man because it would be an unequal combat and there would be no fun in that.
These unusual combatants, such as Amazonia and Aquileia, remained in vogue for more than a century and a half before Emperor Septimus Severus had all female gladiators banned in the year 200. Advertising was important in ancient times. Filling the Colosseum was no problem, but in the outer provinces, attracting enough people to fill a 20,000-seat arena, like this in Pompeii, was a challenge. The entire population of Pompeii was only 10,000.
This is the facade of a house that's on the main street of Pompeii, and originally it was absolutely covered with advertisements for games. There will be a procession, a pompa, a venatio, a beast hunt.
Yeah.
There will be awnings over the amphitheater, vela. There will be a special kind of beast that leaps upon people who wear turquoise.
Also, town criers were used, and a common practice
This was a lot different than today's sport.
Announced upcoming games that would have 20 pairs of gladiators. In one well-advertised contest in 59 AD,
this is how things could go back.
Between the citizens of Pompeii and the neighboring town of Nuceria.
If you don't know what you're doing in a fight, look at the paintings, man.
Because of this incident depicted in this famous fresco
Oh yeah,
in Naples, all
he was nasty. Scary situation to be in.
So
back in those old days.
In addition to the thrill of watching blood sports, the average person could sit in the same building as his local leader. In Rome, this meant the emperor himself.
They want to know, what's the character of this guy? Is he actually a responsible sort of man who ought to be an emperor, or is he a beast? Has he got cruelty built into him? Is he enjoying it too much?
The violence was obviously part of the attraction, and we can tell that from so many images which show actual flow of blood and wounds gushing and so on. Mosaics that sponsors put on their floors to demonstrate to their clients that they had sponsored this magnificent spectacle.
And after one bite, Satyrus was so drenched with blood that as he came away, the mob roared and witnessed to the second baptism. "You have taken a good bath!" This was the traditional cry with which an audience greeted
Bloody bath, man.
The popularity
I tell you, the fight is dirty.
is a very, very curious
It's dirty,
phenomenon.
man.
Remember
You
that
know?
in the ancient world, people lived with death all around them all the time. It was a very violent world. Your life was very short. There were no pain-killing medicines. You lived a very violent, difficult
Yeah, man, you had to fight soldiers plus animals, wild animals.
somebody else
It's crazy.
instead of to you.
It's a crazy situation you gotta deal with. Crazy situation, I'm telling you, bro. That's how you can. That's how you grow up if you want to be part of the military.
There was also a great fascination with the different
Sometimes, if you're a kid, they will force you to join the military. They will force you to be strong. They won't even let you go to school. They will let you be smart only in the military. It's scary.
Except for a very small
You gotta know how to be smart in school first before you join the military. But this is how they do it back then. They force kids to join the military so they can grow up and become strong as a young man when he trained as a little boy with no school, he growed up as a young man, a young grown-ass man to fight these guys. He was deadly. He had to survive before anything else. They were scary, man. Those days were scary, innit? Those days were really scary.
Also, you could fight on horseback, and those were the underbound.
Scary situation you could be in.
Go into the arena with a blindfold.
It was in the ancient times. They will force you, man.
Go at each other.
As a child, they will force you, man,
to see which bit they
to join them with it, to join the fight with them, man.
There's evidence that amphitheater bands were present to play music to match the
They
mood
will
of the
let you
match,
train
almost like a music score for a feature film.
They will let you train hard.
Gladiator would
They
rarely
got no
ever face
choice
a
but
foe
to
of
train
equal
hard
skill. The most popular stars
and become
fought only
strong
on rare and important occasions, anywhere from 1 to 5 times a
and
year.
know how to fight for your, girl, know how to fight for your people, man.
A very substantial fine.
You gotta risk your life, do so.
We get a
It's not
figure
easy.
like 50 times the rental price.
So
There's
this
a
is how they
controversy
do
about
it.
how many gladiators actually died fighting in the amphitheater.
They die
Some
fighting.
people would put the figure as high as 50%. I prefer a figure somewhere
They gotta
between
know how
5
to
and
die
10%.
fighting for your people, man.
Gladiators did die.
Die fighting for your woman. Protect her at all times.
Well, we know that when a gladiator had acknowledged defeat, the umpire would appeal to the spectators
protect her from a fool that's trying to do her bad, man. Gotta protect her
must therefore be dispatched
by knowing how to die fighting like a man, like a real man. Learning martial arts, learning the military, all that stuff, man. Isn't all those things involves in knowing how to die fighting, knowing how to die, man, knowing how to die fighting. Christ. Boom. There you go.
We know
See
for
that?
sure that when the gladiator is defeated and asks to be let off, the sign of surrender is putting up a finger or a hand. The literary sources describe the gesture that the man who's giving the game has made, and they say pressing his thumb or turning his thumb. Was it thumbs up means you're all right, or was it the other way around? And what happens is, historically, a decision is made by filmmakers. And the thumbs up sign comes out of a filmmaker's picture of the Roman world, which then becomes a universal sign for, okay.
Occasionally, a gladiator was finished off by a man he had previously spared. There is an epitaph to a fallen gladiator in which he advised those who came
spared his life. But the thumbs down was gonna be a whole different story. He would have killed him. Thumbs up is to spare his life if he's already weak, or the masters say thumbs down is when he's getting ready for the eating. He's getting ready for the killing. And that's when he killed him.
Another spectacle
Telling you, bro.
Crowds was the beast hunt, featuring wild animals.
These were real times.
The animals were stalked by professional hunters called predators.
Real
times,
bro.
The amphitheater was a universal zoo. There was no way the average Roman could get over to North Africa and see a crocodile for real or binoculars.
Alrighty. We're coming to fight. Cause we want to learn here. You hear him, boy? Let's get there. Yeah. You're coming for King Sparta! Do not let him down! The Kings of Sparta! You're on! You keep on fighting! What you want, boy? Where you think you're going? About 7 of them left. You will not disappoint us. We're gonna keep fighting. We're gonna keep fighting. Wow. Ah. That's right. Yeah. Let's cut him up. We still got 4 of them left. We still got 4 of them left though. Yeah. We're doing well, people. Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna keep fighting. Ah. Cold eye. Oh. Whoa! Cold eye! One more left. One more left to kill. Here we go. Run after. Ah. 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 Cold eye. Ha ha ha. Listen, good. Watch out, warrior archer. Didn't you know you can give gifts to people. You'll drop objects nearby. The surface way to getting them to like you. But you'll backfire if you choose the wrong gift. But don't you feel I have to get me a gift? You have to get me a gift to tell you because we're already friends. First man. First my amigo. That's it. Okay, friend. The Roman warrior. I think they're going to see. Yes, correct. Finish what I started with this brick here. With this selfish idiot. What this say? Is there a foreign word for that? Things should make more sense now. Haha. So where is this battle of Teutoburg we're talking about here again? Is this the Battle of Teutoburg? We need to find him. Right away.
And ever less the costly games. So I was thinking, and this all started since the first century. It was when they turned the Olympic Games into a very gruesome and violent combat sport that's created in the first century. How cool is that?
Continue our history.
No chance, no.
World history.
We had to build a Colosseum.
It's what we call.
Years.
Think about history is my favorite school subject.
It was
to be educated of what history is.
First century. And they were fighting. The gladiator games lasted nearly 1,000 years. Nearly thousands of years. That's a long time.
2,000.
He wasn't even born until that time came. He wasn't even born. Yeah. I mean, in this since that time. So made a mistake on that.
3rd century.
Yeah, man. We wasn't even. We as decades now. We wasn't even here. These guys were here. These guys that were here thousands of years ago, they were here to join this fight club that they made. Fight sport is a deadly one, a deadly fighting sport for the fans to watch. In Rome, it's a fight to the death. Flight survival. But now it says reaching their peak between the 1st century BC and the 2nd century AD. The games finally declined during the early 5th century.
From the 1st century BC to the 2nd century of AD.
Of the Roman Empire in 3 AD. All through these hunts continued.
That's now. It was then when he was clean. When he was brand new looking. But the fight was deadly. So this was ancient. From ancient to now. From then to now. Have you told? Is how it looks. Rome. Even the Roman money back then was just coins. with those heads on them.
Concerned. Over 160 feet high, 617 feet long, and 512 feet wide, the Colosseum was state-of-the-art until very recent times, featuring a retractable roof that blocked out the sun, and a maze of sophisticated underground staging devices, including elevators and trapdoors that made the production of the most spectacular gladiatorial displays possible. The Colosseum, of course, is more than a stadium. It's an echo chamber that reverberates through history with a roar of a crowd caught up in the bloody spectacle of gladiatorial games.
When you compare it to a building like the Pantheon, for example, or the Vatican, I mean, there's a quietness about those buildings. But quiet is not what you think when you walk up to the Colosseum. You can just hear 50,000 people and see them streaming to that place. It is so clearly a gathering place, and again, an incredible memory that the building has of all of the events that happened there.
Tens of thousands of gladiators died here, along with vast numbers of prisoners of war and criminals who were executed in horrifically varied ways. Countless lions, tigers, elephants, giraffes, and other exotic animals were also slaughtered. The world still struggles to reconcile how Rome, which saw itself as the great civilizing power of its time, could revel in killing on such a scale for nearly 5 centuries as a form of entertainment.
I believe that the Romans would have enjoyed it, and it was exciting. It's a bit like we look now at the television and we had all these Terminators killing people, criminals around the world, and we think it is, of course, a virtual reality, and we don't think about it. I don't think the Romans thought that it was more than that. I think it is just another television show.
The Colosseum wasn't called the Colosseum until many centuries after it was built. In its prime, it was called the Flavian Amphitheater,
We went through a lot,
the imperial family that authorized its construction.
in Rome.
It borrowed the name Colosseum long after it closed from an enormous 120-foot statue of Nero called the Colossus that stood nearby. Nothing remains of the statue, but a fragment of the massive pedestal that once held it high is still in place, just outside the Colosseum's western side.
Look at it now, though. Look how
the amphitheater, or double theater, was invented
back in the old days when the fight was going on, the deadly fight was going on. It was built nicely.
As the 3rd century BC. But the first stone amphitheater, a simple structure that had 4 entrances and could hold 12,000 people, was built in Pompeii around 70 BC.
Of course, man.
100 years later, Rome still did not have a large permanent amphitheater, which was strange because Rome was the largest city in the world, by far, with over 1 million inhabitants, more than twice as many as Alexandria, its nearest rival. Rome was, in fact, in many ways more like a modern city than an ancient one, incredibly congested, crammed with theaters, temples, palaces, and other great structures, and teeming with a restless population that was hungry for diversion. Around 70 AD, the new emperor Vespasian decided to provide some of that diversion by building an amphitheater worthy of the imperial capital. The architects who designed the new amphitheater faced an enormous set of challenges. To hold so many people, the stadium had to be 4 levels high, with seating on the first 3 and standing room at the top. The outer facade would be classical, even by ancient standards, with repeating tiers of arches and decorated columns laid out according to traditional rules of design. 80 entrances, 76 of them numbered, would make it easy for the huge crowds to get in and out of the amphitheater. Everything about the Colosseum's inner design was also organized with traffic flow in mind. A series of concentric walls, including the outer facade, would create lanes of traffic on all 4 levels. Radial passageways corresponding to the entrances would make it easy for people to get to their seats. And a system of stairways would tie the whole thing together.
Warriors died in there. Many warriors died in there, man.
One of the first and biggest challenges in building the Colosseum was quarrying and hauling the stone for the stadium's 160-foot outer wall. A local form of of limestone called travertine was cut into 8 by 3 foot blocks and carried 20 miles from a quarry in the neighboring town of Tivoli. Tivoli still exists, as do its ancient quarries, which yielded 100,000 cubic feet of travertine for the Colosseum facade.
I cannot conceive what 100,000 cubic feet would look like, but it sounds absolutely enormous if you think about it. This would be acres of stone.
Then you won't have it
in that one building.
Have to worry about fighting again.
The Romans built a special road just to transport the Colosseum stone, and 200 ox carts made the trip each day. 240,000 cartloads in all. The other major materials used to build the Colosseum were iron, 300 tons of which were used to clamp the blocks into place, tufa, a light but strong local stone, and brick.
It's an integrated system of material with different structural capacities used in a hierarchical way. They've used travertine piers. Travertine is a kind of limestone. They've used tufa walls, a volcanic stone, not as good as travertine, but still pretty good. Then brick-faced concrete. So this system stitched the whole building together in a fully integrated whole.
Very little is really known about the equipment the Romans used to build the Colosseum. How, for example, could they lift such heavy blocks of stone to such a height?
You might see a piece of finger on the floor or something like that.
Tantalizing image from the gravestone of a
somebody's head
contractor
being
who was
chopped
commissioned
off.
to build a quarter of the Colosseum.
Or just a full
gives
body.
us a glimpse.
It is a very impressive scene of a massive crane which is hauling blocks up with pulleys. The crane is actually operated by a kind of revolving wheel with slaves treading, a treadmill type of arrangement
chills, man, to see somebody
move
die right
to
there.
rotate the crane
With just
into
blood
position.
I mean, I don't mind.
The Colosseum took about 10 years to build.
Man,
Not a bad speed by
why they have to die in a nasty way?
Astonishing one 2,000 years ago.
Have to die in a nasty way.
They didn't have computers, and they didn't have electrical tools or so.
You can see
And
its
the
bones
building
and
is
stuff.
gigantic. And any number
After the
of
blood and guts
little errors
gushed
and
out,
glitches must have happened
his body and
that
stuff
slowed
like that.
down the construction.
It's
But
brutal.
despite all that, they were able
Nasty
to
way to die
coordinate
in a
their
fight.
building efforts.
With all that stabbing and
Such a threat
flashing
would soon be put
and
to an
lashing,
equally difficult test. Up next, the labyrinthine underworld of the Colosseum.
writhing in pain.
Archaeologists have found evidence of 110 drinking fountains and 2 very large lavatories in the Colosseum. The Colosseum will return on Modern Marvels. We now return to the Colosseum on Modern Marvels. Gladiators once moved through these narrow passageways, along with stagehands, animal handlers, lions, crocodiles, elephants, and other wild beasts captured from the far reaches of the Roman Empire. This is the underworld of the Colosseum. 2 floors worth of twisting corridors and cul-de-sacs that used to be hidden beneath the arena floor, and that once bustled with all the behind-the-scenes activity that made the gladiatorial games and other deadly spectacles possible. Domitian, the younger son of the Emperor Vespasian, built this netherworld, called the Hypogeum, or Underground, when he became emperor in 81 AD.
We have to think of a normal theater. Big activities, many people. Here, someone is running there. Something else is moving ropes. Something else is preparing costumes. So let's imagine this very crowded atmosphere down here in narrow spaces like this one.
The staging, the idea that it truly is a labyrinth is amazing, because it's not only an engineering marvel, it's an operational marvel. It truly was this intricate set of passageways that helped to host the event and enhance the spectacle of it. But interestingly enough, if you peeled off the basketball floor or the hockey floor of a modern-day arena, it would look pretty much the same, be built out of slightly different materials. Archaeologists have been piecing together the complex story of the Colosseum substructure since scientific excavation began in the 1870s. A fascinating part of that story involves the elevators that carried gladiators, animals, and scenery to the arena floor. 32 elevators, specially designed for lions, panthers, and other dangerous animals, ringed the arena at the level of the hypogeum.
They were brought up from the lower floor in cages, probably operated by some kind of counterpoise system in which the weight is released, and in the process the cage rises, the animal emerged and attracted by the light, and no doubt there was some kind of bait at the top of the ramp which might have encouraged him to charge. And if things were going well, it was possible to get all these animals emerging simultaneously.
Larger hinged platforms or ramps called pegmata were located in the center of the arena. Counterweights were used to lift elephants and other massive animals, as well as spectacular scenery, including forests and mountains.
We have no exact idea about how they could recreate in a few seconds, for instance, the volcano Vesuvio. We know that in 3rd century AD, the volcano was rebuilt inside the arena of the Colosseum, and that it appeared suddenly in a triumph of fire and lava. It's unbelievable. But they did it.
In addition to the underground, Domitian added something to the Colosseum that modern stadium spectators only began to grow accustomed to in the last half of the 20th century: a retractable roof. The velarium, as it was called, was made of cloth and unfurled by a detachment of 300 imperial sailors, permanently stationed outside the Colosseum. The awning protected spectators from the burning Mediterranean sun.
Waiting 4 hours all day in the summer is not easy. So the velarium was a great gift
in the old days.
to
It
give
was big,
more
big.
beauty,
It was big.
even more beauty.
It was built nicely.
Bracket held a tall beam of wood, much like the mast of a ship. At a signal, the sailors pulled ropes, stretching a 24-ton colored canvas in place. The canvas covered 2/3 of the arena, leaving the center above the arena floor exposed. Traces of the stairways the sailors used to get to their positions inside the Colosseum wall can still be seen. Not much is definitively known about how the velarium worked. Indeed, archaeologists have yet to postulate a credible design to explain how such a large awning could work, given the wind stresses involved.
We know how broadly the velarium worked, that the system of ropes and pulleys could open it and close it, and probably open and close different parts separately, that you didn't have to open the whole thing at once and close it all. But these are still generalities. Exactly how they were attached to the velabrum and where the sailors stood and how they pulled it, that we don't know.
The Colosseum opened in 80 AD in spectacular style, with 100 days of gladiatorial games. 5,000 animals and an unknown number of men would die during a single day of the inaugural bloodfest. For the first 2 years of the Colosseum's life, before Domitian added the hypogeum, gladiators actually fought on water, in mock recreations of famous naval battles.
The arena that in the first phase was completely wooden was dismantled in few hours, and then the basin was flooded because it was connected with an aqueduct, and in few hours spectators could observe ship fighting inside the Colosseum.
Admission to the Colosseum was free, and tickets in the form of pottery shards were distributed by city officials. A number on the ticket indicated which of the arched entrances to go through. Seating was based strictly on social class.
The emperor and VIPs sat on a 13-foot-high stepped marble platform at the first level. Iron bars and netting protected them from animals, weapons, and gore. Middle-class citizens sat on the second tier. Poorer citizens sat on the third. The top level, with steep wooden bleachers and standing room at the back, was reserved for women, the very poor, and slaves. Seats were made of marble, only a few fragments of which remained.
Very bloody, very
As
gory,
a people mover,
very
able
violent.
to circulate some of the largest crowds in the ancient world with speed and ease, the Colosseum proved to be phenomenal.
Modern estimations have been something like you could empty that place within 12 minutes or something like that. I mean, that's mind-boggling, isn't it? That people could leave their seats, go to the nearest exit, and from that exit, without crossing over to the second exit's line, could directly go down steps and ramps and exit all along the 360-degree circumference of the building and get dispersed into the great city.
This was the oldest of the oldest.
Was the great achievement of planning of the Colosseum.
Yes, Europe. one left to kill. Yes, I'm going. Get your own. You need something else. Let's just turn back. The seal of the Roman Empire lose out of your people. We will remove these two criminals from this society. And just to a good world, and send them back to you. All these brothers and fathers, let me try to get my race. Cross-dressing him. Release Gladiator. This blood is refusing to go to hunters. And the hunter knows what it is. And all this is because of a gladiator. What does something? Return back to you. Thank you. Roman Empire. Let it be your day. You do anything for us. I'll be like that. Corporation should be a place to be civilized. He's my family to Italy. Hello? Sankin Brani. You are a province, you are a fight it out. Don't you? Don't you? Don't you? See if you can test out our strength. Evil bastard. Come on, bastard. Yeah. Still wanna go, pretty boy? Huh? Who think I get off? You suck, yeah. Let's fight. See who's got strength. Huh? Hercules. The other warrior that just died. After the fatal killing one. Which I probably needed for the body. Let's see. Time to fight. You want to die? Yeah. 5th year, 1015 AD. The battle was rough. Still lasted 16 men on both sides, fighting deadly. Let's use the smartest. One had died. Fight. died. It's been brutal. Whoa! He's blowing! He's blowing! It's been hot! We gotta keep fighting, people! We cannot stop now! Oh! Dang! Keep winning. Keep fighting. We won. 2 survivors. Surviving a deadly, ugly battle. It was ugly.
And there was a tremendous interest in how they worked, how the animals actually behaved, how fast they could run.
A wide variety of animals were brought in. We also have...
This is just like the wildlife.
Outside of Rome,
Ready for
fierce
eating.
Animals, where they would be raised
To get ready to kill their prey after they finish fighting them. And they look weak
very popular. In fact,
already.
Some animals would reappear from entertainment to entertainment. We know that there were particularly ferocious bears who people would come to see, and they would have names like Fierce, Nasty, Death, etc.
The other events of the day would include public executions of condemned prisoners and Christians. All these public displays served a common purpose for the Romans.
We look at the conflict between man and beast and think about how this represents a control over nature. And then, of course, when we look at the execution of criminals, what you see there is against society taking on its enemies. And the totality of the display, the control over nature, the control over your enemies, the valor of the combatants, is what seems to have excited the Romans.
We know that execution in antiquity was always public, partly for deterrent purposes, partly so the public could see that proper retribution was being taken.
The total carnage of humans and animals was staggering. On the opening day of the Colosseum, it was reported that 5,000 beasts were disposed of with the right degree of cruelty. And what of the gladiator? How must it feel as one is about to enter an arena with
Gladiator.
80,000 people all there to witness the fight for life or death?
There's got to be a tremendous amount of adrenaline running through your veins as you step out there and face the person. Of course, every once in a while, people completely lose it and run away.
It was quite common for prisoners to commit suicide rather than face certain death by sword or beast. Not for fear of death, but for the humiliation of being killed as a form of entertainment. The games took a quantum leap in size, scale, and savagery when gladiators took to the sands of the House of Death.
Upgrade to watch videos ad-free, offline.
It's gay. I don't care about that shit. The Colosseum.
A condemned criminal who, hanging on no unreal cross, gave up his vitals to Caledonian bear, his mangled limbs still living, though parts stripped.
This one is like being tortured. Not good at all. This is like being tortured. It's a nightmare. Nightmare it is.
Provincials from very, very far afield.
You know what's sad too? The innocents also sometimes get killed in there, man.
In the presence of the
even when they're innocent, even when they don't want to fight, they get killed in there. That's sad, man.
Absolute feat of engineering.
That's sad, very sad
In
times.
terms of design and execution, it is one of the greatest
Very sad
Roman
times,
achievements. And the paradox is that with all this technology, what they're creating is a machine for killing.
Ooh.
It was built to make a statement.
That's the blood sport.
To last. For 20
That's the
centuries,
real
we have
blood sport
marveled at
about
its design,
the
and have been
gladiators,
drawn
bro.
to it with thoughts of the death and pain that this monument
Body.
produced.
When it comes to the real fights, the real fighting of gladiators.
The building was opened to the public in 79 AD and was called the Flavian Amphitheater, named after the Flavian dynasty which replaced Nero. In fact, the Colosseum was built directly over Nero's private lake.
So by building this Colosseum here, you're giving back to the people all of this piece of downtown real estate, and you're taking private imperial property and opening it for public use. It is also one of the greatest expressions of imperial power just because of the sheer size of the building.
The building covered 6 acres, stood 160 feet high, and held anywhere from 45,000
Dang,
to
there's a lot of building.
spectators, depending on
It
standing
took
room.
years to build that. Not easy.
No time in offering the
They built
biggest
it nice
spectacles ever staged for its citizens.
for this bloody, not nice, not so nice battle.
It is where the center of entertainment, where the standards are set. It's the LA of its time.
That's a different type of sport right there. And it's called warrior sport. It's called being a warrior. Knowing how to be a man. And know how to fight to the death, man. As an army.
22 consecutive days, in which some claim 11,000
Scary
people
situation.
and 10,000 animals were killed.
1,000 animals were killed, man.
These imperial
Also the
performances is absolutely stupendous. Augustus puts in his will
You can see their flesh being
numbers
torn
of
up.
gladiators that performed in his reign
Flesh has been eaten, torn up
that he
in
paid
there.
for, and that
They do
is
all types of
10,000.
stuff. No holds
Emperors, in a
barred.
sense, have to compete with each other, with the
No holds
memory of
barred.
the games that other people have given. You don't want to get a reputation as a
You can be brutal in there. You can bite their ears off. You can do anything. It's ugly. It's ugly in there. You gotta survive. It's ugly. The fight is always ugly. It's always gonna be ugly. It's always gonna stay ugly. That's the classic way of fighting. Fight to the death. Classic way. The old school fashioned way. Not a sports entertainment way where you have MMA and boxing and kickboxing where you can just knock him out. No. After you knock him out, you have to kill him. In a bloody, in cold blood.
can't stage a
very
naval
scary.
battle in the Colosseum as we now have it, because the underneath part has been turned into beast cages. But in the very beginning, when it was first built, those that underneath part hadn't yet been constructed, and at that stage it was possible to flood it.
The Colosseum became the template for all other major amphitheaters, and we see later
some of them got
amphitheaters
killed in cold
copying
blood.
the kinds of things that the Colosseum pioneered. And particularly, one thinks about the subterranean structures.
Beneath the floor of the
part where they just been
find
slashed
a maze of
open and
corridors,
stuff.
ramps,
The
lifts,
wounds.
pulleys, cages, and trapdoors, manned by hundreds of slaves to coordinate precisely
Organs
timed
flying,
theatrical
hands
surprises.
flying, ears flying. Head been chopped off.
The best example of these inner workings below can be found in a surviving ruin in
I tell you, man.
We're actually
You can walk out of that arena with one ear, one
2
foot.
stories high, containing the cages.
Many toes has been chopped off your foot, man.
And sent up through a series
You
of
can walk out of here with one arm
on stage up above us.
and still be alive, bruh. That's how ugly that fight is. That's how ugly that fight is, man. Very ugly when it comes to it. Very ugly. It turns ugly. It turns deadly. It turns messy.
Perhaps the main thing is the sudden
most
sense
violent and
you
barbaric
get
way.
when you
The
enter
most
a
gory
building
way
like that,
of
being
fighting.
part of a suddenly created society that has come there with a common interest.
And a shared passion even prompted some emperors to enter the arena.
Emperor Commodus would get into the arena, both in gladiatorial fights and also in fighting directly wild animals. This was much appreciated by the crowd. It was a sort of extra beyond the programmed spectacle. Commodus is a huge, heavily muscled person with a thick neck who, it was rumored, might possibly be the son of a gladiator and the very promiscuous wife of Marcus Aurelius, Faustina.
These are the times.
By 2 AD, Rome was
These were the times it had happened.
When it came to entertainment,
The incident happened
appealed to all.
many years ago, 2,000 years ago.
And listen
The
to something
incident
in
happened.
Latin or Greek, because they don't necessarily all speak Latin or Greek. Gladiatorial games are wonderfully accessible for everybody, no linguistic barrier. And it's something they can all appreciate, can all participate in.
Next to the cost of maintaining the massive Roman army, staging these extravagant games was the most expensive venture for the empire.
The games were a multi-million-dollar industry in Roman terms, and there was a huge investment in the entire infrastructure, not just the supply of gladiators and beasts, but also the cleaning of the Colosseum.
The whole of the outside of the amphitheater was ringed with service buildings.
This included the scenery building, the hospital, the armory, and the huge disposal pit for all the corpses, both animal and human. In addition to financing the personnel in all these departments, hundreds of sailors were employed to man the huge awning that shaded the arena. Spectators were treated to free bread and tokens that could be cashed in for large gifts, even real estate. Amidst the 20 centuries of trash, and excavation of a Colosseum drain in the 1970s uncovered other tokens that were used for a more sinister purpose.
And among this refuse were also found little lead tokens, which had been sold to people with the name of the gladiator that the person wished to die. And so these are sort of bad luck tokens, much like a sort of voodoo doll.
The scale of the killings in the arena increased dramatically. Trajan boasted of 5,000 gladiators in the ring at one time, and the persecution of Christians reached alarming heights. Yet even this didn't satisfy the public's bloodlust.
The Romans, the more they watch, the more they see people being killed, the more used to it they become, and the more indifferent to it morally they become.
This insatiable thirst for blood had to come to an end, and it did. But the connection of violence and public entertainment has continued to thrive and can still be found in modern sports today.
The Gladiator.
2,000 2,000 years ago, the Roman masses were drawn to the spectacle. Today, Hollywood creates its own spectacle. Along with trapdoors and chain combatants, it uses advanced computer-generated imagery.
Gladiator's life is extremely dangerous. We had to do some of the very dangerous things that gladiators do that just couldn't be done without visual effects.
I was drawn to those animals. Just like fascinated by them. Lions and tigers. Pretty special. You just keep running down and go, hey, look,
you've got to be constantly aware, remind yourself what you're dealing with. Because if he gets a hold of you, you'll be dead in a second.
Russell Crowe worked very closely with the tigers. A blue screen was used to remove the animal trainers, and other digital elements enhanced the reality of the scene.
We replaced the team that was holding the tiger. And we also did some atmospheric dust where we dusted up the whole plate and did things like extend the shadows to make it look like the Russell Crowe and the tiger are nearly in contact.
Where I enjoyed myself most, I think, is creating worlds. Sometimes new worlds, i.e. science fiction, or recreating worlds which is historical. And this is a world I hadn't ever thought about. I mean, how often you get to build the Colosseum, do the German front in the Danube where you have thousands of troops fighting.
One more.
You suddenly realize when you actually do these films, every move is like not moving 10 people, but it's like moving, can you move those 1,000 people over there? Because the light's changing.
In the movie, it sounds like they're really fighting, but really,
it's been a long time since the subject matter has been made on this scale.
Crowe and director Ridley Scott are part of an impressive team making the first Gladiator film since Spartacus 40 years ago.
Someone's going to go to jail for murder.
Old-fashioned filmmaking
that's why
and absolute cutting-edge technology in terms of the computer work that we're doing.
For the movie,
my signal.
Gladiator,
unleash hell.
in 2000.
Proved your valor yet again, Maximus.
He's the general of the army and is the hero of our story.
Well, Max goes on a very strange journey because at the beginning of the film, he's the general in the army who doesn't really want to be there anymore.
How can I reward Rome's greatest general?
Let me go home.
Richard Harris portrays Emperor Marcus Aurelius and Joaquin Phoenix his son, Commodus, the heir apparent to the Roman Empire.
Have I missed it? Have I missed the battle?
You have missed the war.
I've always been envious of him. He's a man of honor and great inner strength.
Clearly, Marcus Aurelius would have preferred Maximus as his son. The Marcus Aurelius character is conscious of the fact that his son is, in quotes and from the film, is not a moral man.
Gladiator. Where are those fools at? It's time to fight. It looks like they're coming now. Something knocking at the car, huh? Yo! What is this? Shit! Right on your front. You're Mexican. It's Egypt, yeah. fighting. Join it. Under arrest, you're the police. Alright, man. So we'll bring it on to that. Yeah! shit. Oh. Yeah. No.
Men. His mission was to lead those 3 legions and their camp followers, 10,000 women and children, to their winter quarters. Varus's guide was Arminius, chief of the Cheruski tribe. Arminius was a trusted ally, having fought many battles for the Romans. The journey took the Romans through the vast Teutoburg forest. It had been raining for days. The ground was sodden and muddy, but Varus was so confident of his handling of the Germans, he allowed his troops to straggle out in a thin, defenseless line, with no means of command or communication.
The German leaders who had accompanied Varus when he set out, one by one, made excuses and left him. This was to enable them to prepare their combined forces. Then they took command of their troops who were already waiting in readiness. At the most impenetrable part of the forest, they fell upon birds.
Roma, Mdicke, abbia Mario Augusto, Malivese. De Mario, Amaputo, Roma,
The Germans had built earth walls and ditches that trapped the fleeing Romans like wild animals. Barbarians picked off their victims. At the end of the first day's fighting, the legions were badly mauled. But these were experienced troops. They wouldn't give in easily. The next day, they marched but soon the Romans' route forced them back into the forest. Now the army was strung out even further. The slower groups fell way behind the head of the column. Varus knew another onslaught could come at any time. He forced a way through the densest thickets, where the enemy was familiar with every inch of the ground. By afternoon, his 3 legions were stretched out like a giant snake. Again, the Germans fell upon the legions. They neither draw their bows or hurl their javelins to any effect, or even make much use of their shields, which were completely sodden with rain. Their
their opponents were lightly armed, so could approach or retire without difficulty.
In the chaos, the Germans captured the Roman imperial standard. It was the greatest shame that could befall a legion. What was left of the column marched on, unaware of the fate of those ahead.
They were few in number, and had many non-combatants in the baggage trade. They managed to slip past the enemy on 2 or 3 occasions, but their presence was discovered. This was because the women and children, who were both frightened and exhausted, troubled too by the darkness and cold, kept calling for the soldiers to come back.
Malevute e marcato. Malevute gusto. Repa, Roma, e la Roma, che la Roma, e la Vacalibe Roma, e la Mocoto.
Of 20,000 legionaries and a baggage train of 10,000 men, women, and children, fewer than 2,000 escaped the 3-day massacre.
Racrute Buzela. Basile punta tutta la testa, una cabana pato palisto, e la boccinetta. Vela pite, non la vuoi prima.
Rome discovered the limits of its power.
Vallo ultima gripe, alla Roma detto. Monti manche, lo musto.
6 years after the devastating massacre of 3 Roman legions in the Teutoburg forest, a detachment of Roman soldiers found the remains of their fallen comrades. Roman historian Tacitus described the scene.
Varus's camp, with its wide circumference and the measurements of its central space, clearly indicated the handicap of 3 legions. Further on, the partially fallen rampart, the shallow ditch, suggested that it was a shattered remnant of the army that had taken the position. In the center of the field were whitening bones of men. They had fled or stood their ground, strewn everywhere or piled in heaps. Nearby lay fragments of weapons and limbs of horses. And also human heads prominently nailed to trunks of trees. In the adjacent groves were the barbarous altars on which they had burned tribunes and first-rank centurions. Some survivors of the disaster who had escaped from the battle or from captivity described how this was the spot where the officers fell, how yonder the eagles were captured, where Varus was pierced by his first wound, where too by the stroke of his own ill-starred hand he killed himself.
As the stunned Romans surveyed the remains, they realized how one-sided the fight had been. It was a massacre. But even before the remains were discovered, news of the massacre had shaken Rome to the core.
Varus' defeat nearly wrecked the empire, since 3 legions with their general and all their officers and auxiliary forces were massacred. When the news reached Rome, the Emperor Augustus ordered patrols of the city at night to prevent any rising or riots. Indeed, it is said that he took the disaster so deeply to heart that he left his hair and beard untrimmed for months. He would often beat his head on a door, shouting, "Quinctilius Varus, give me back my legions," and always kept the anniversary of the massacre as a day of deep mourning.
After Teutoburg, there would never be a 17th, 18th, or 19th legion in the Roman army. The numbers and the failure they represented were banished from memory.
Papitino, emo papipi.
The Roman soldiers, 6 years after the disaster, in grief and anger, began to bury the bones of the 3 legions.
Patitino, el amo papipi, no pelito.
Stranger, but looking on all as kinsfolk, and of their own blood, while their wrath rose higher
Pateto noco, maribo neme palinte.
After this shattering defeat, Rome took stock of her empire. She began to question her expansionist policies. The Emperor Augustus abandoned his plans for the conquest of Germany. The lands beyond the Rhine and Danube rivers were left to the barbarians. The effect of this single defeat was to halt the advance of the world's mightiest army for almost 40 years. When the legions marched again, it would be to the west, the distant island of Britain.
Conquista maiunte movimente auremo Cristo. With our brother talking book. Thanks for watching and enjoy this film.